Good morning students. Our chapter number 10, Respiration in Organisms is going on. In the first three periods, we learn about cellular respiration, aerobic and anaerobic respiration, how our body respire anaerobically, how do we get muscle cramp and how to get relief from muscle cramp. Then we learn about mechanism of breathing, breathing rate, how breathing rate changes by different activities. Then we learn some activities which shows proper mechanism of breathing, percentage of oxygen and carbon dioxide in inhaled and exhaled air. Today we will see the remaining part of this chapter. Now see our next point, breathing in other animal. Up to this point we learn the breathing mechanism in human being. Now we will learn in this point how other animals are breathe. Now see the next point. Animals such as elephants, lions, cows, goats, frogs, lizards, snakes, birds have lungs in their chest cavities like the human being. Some animals are there which having lungs in their chest cavities like the human being, and some examples are given here: elephants, lions, cows, goats, frogs, lizards, snakes and birds. They have lungs in their chest cavity like a human being. Now one question is arises, how do the other organisms breathe? Do they also have lungs like those of human being? Let us find out. And some examples we are taking for that. First one, cockroach. A cockroach has small openings on the sides of its body. A cockroach has and small openings on their sides of its body. Other insects also have similar opening. They are having small openings on their body, on their sides of the body, and other insects also. Other insects also they are having similar opening. Now the openings are called spiracle. The openings are called spiracles. They are having spiracles on their body in the short way. Insects have a network of air tubes called trachea for a gas exchange. Now the insects they are having a network of air tubes, which is called trachea, and it is for the gas exchange. Now see what happened in there. Oxygen rich air rushes through the spiracles into the tracheal tubes, diffuses into the body tissue and reaches every cell of the body. When we learn about the human being, that time what happened, we breathe, the air passes from the nasal cavity to air pipe, wind pipe, then it passes to the lungs, and it is the air, oxygen rich air reaches, it is passes to all over the body to each cell. Now here in the same way that oxygen rich air rushes through the spiracles into the tracheal tubes, they are having small openings on their body which is called as a spiracle, and from that oxygen rich air rushes to spiracle into the tracheal tubes, they are having air tube network which is called as a trachea, and that oxygen rich air from through the spiracle, it is passes to the tracheal tube, and it is distributed to the body tissue and it is reaches to every cell of the body. Similarly, carbon dioxide from the cells goes into the tracheal tube and moves out through spiracle, in the same way that carbon dioxide, which is by working by their daily work, they are preparing carbon dioxide, they are using oxygen and they are preparing carbon dioxide, and these carbon dioxide is goes from cells to the tracheal tube and moves out through the spiracle. In the same way, which is mechanism of breathing which is happen in the human being. We are taking oxygen rich air, our cells are using oxygen and they are preparing carbon dioxide, and these carbon dioxide again comes into the lungs and it passes throughout the nasal cavity. In the same way that here also it is formed. See once again, oxygen rich air, it is passes through the spiracles to the tracheal tubes and it is passed to whole over the body tissue, and from that it is reaches to every cell of the body. Then they are using oxygen and preparing carbon dioxide, and then when they prepare carbon dioxide, it passes from the cell, goes to the tracheal tubes and moves out through the spiracles. These air tubes of trachea are found only in the insects, and not any other group of the animals, and these types of system will be formed available only in the insects, not in any other group of the animals. Now the next one, You can see the example diagram also there. Now next example, earthworm. Recall from the chapter 9 in class 6 that earthworm breathe through their skin. Earthworm breathe through their skin. One chapter was there, chapter number 9, class 6. Earthworms breathe through the skin. We are already aware about that. The skin of an earthworm feels moist and slimy on touching. We are aware about that. Gases can easily pass through them, and though frog have pair of lungs like human being. Frog, they are having pair of lungs like a human being. They can also breathe through their skin, which is moist and slippery. Which is moist and slippery. Now see our next point. First, one question was there. Bojo has seen in television programs that whales and dolphins often come up to the water surface. They even release fountain of water sometimes while moving upwards, and why they do so. Now here is the answer. Fish use their gills to take oxygen from the water. We already learned that they live in. But people get oxygen. People we get oxygen we need by breathing air using our lungs. Whales and dolphins use their lungs to breathe air also, and that's why they come to the surface of the ocean. They are having lungs. They are having lungs. Dolphins and whales, they are having lungs. They don't having gills. That's why they come up to water surface, and they are taking oxygen from the air. For that purpose they are come to the surface of the ocean or water surface. Now our next point is breathing underwater. Breathing underwater. The first question, can we breathe and survive in water? Our first answer is no. Why? Because since humans do not have gills, we do not have gills, we cannot absorb the oxygen which is present in the water, So can we, or human beings cannot survive or breathe in a water. There are many organisms which live in a water, and how do they breathe underwater? We are aware about that. They are having gills, as we learn in class 6. Now see, have you studied in class 6 that gills in a fish help them to use oxygen dissolved in a water? The animals who are living in the water, who are having gills, they are having capacity, they are having ability to absorb the oxygen which is present in the water. Gills are projection of the skin. You may wonder how gills help in a breathing. Gills are well supplied with the blood vessels. Gills are supplied with the blood vessels for exchange of gases. How the gills helps in the breathing? Gills, they are well supplied with the blood vessels for the exchange of gases. Now here figure 10.10 shows breathing organ in fish, gills. Now our next point, do plants also respire? Do plants also respire? We are aware about that. We already learned that concept also. Now see, like other living organism, plant also respire for their survival, as you have learned in class 6. We are already aware about that. Plants also respire. They are taking carbon dioxide and giving us oxygen. We are aware about that. That's why we can say that plants also respire. Plants also respire. Now see, they also take in oxygen from the air and give out carbon dioxide. They are taking oxygen from the air and give out carbon dioxide. In the cells, oxygen is used to break down the glucose into carbon dioxide and water in other organism. It is mentioned about the organisms, not about plant. We are taking oxygen from the air and giving out carbon dioxide. In the cells, what happen? Oxygen is used breakdown of glucose and carbon dioxide and water in other organism. In plant, what happen? In plant, each part can independently take oxygen from the air. In plant, each part can independently take oxygen from the air and give out carbon dioxide. You have already learned in chapter 1 that the leaves of the plant have tiny pores called stomata for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Now here what happened? We already learned in chapter first, nutrition in plants. Nutrition in plant. In that we learn the plant leaves are having tiny pores which is called as a stomata and which is helpful for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Oxygen and carbon dioxide. Now here Paheli raised one question. Paheli wants to know whether roots which are underground also take in oxygen. If yes, then how? Here it is answer. Like all other living cells of the plant, the root cells also need oxygen to generate energy. To generate energy, like other cells, other living cells, there are other living cells of the plant. They can take oxygen from the air, but roots are underground. Roots are underground. Then how they can get the oxygen? The root cells also need the oxygen to generate energy. They are also performing their activity and they are also required energy. Then roots take up air from the airspace present between the soil particle. Now here see in figure 10.11, root absorbs air from the soil. Here root is present there, then root hair which is mentioned here, soil particles, and where in the soil particles their gap is there, the space is there, airspace is there. From that they are taking oxygen. Now the next, can you guess what would happen if a potted plant is overwatered? Can you guess what would happen if a potted plant is overwatered? What happens? Roots growing in waterlogged soil. Roots which is growing in the waterlogged soil may die because they cannot absorb the oxygen needed to function normally. We now already learned that roots, they are taking oxygen which is present in the gaps of the soil gaps, but when overwater will be there, that time that space will be covered by the water, and they maybe die. Again I will tell you the answer. Root growing in the waterlogged soil may die because they cannot absorb the oxygen needed to function normally. The longer the air is cut off, the greater the root damage, and the dying roots decay and cannot supply the plant with nutrient and water, and damage is caused by overwatering. What happen when we give an overwater? That time the space which is present in the soil particle which is having oxygen, when that space is covered by the water, and roots, they cannot get energy because oxygen is not present there. They cannot get oxygen, and that's why they cannot give the nutrients and water for the plant, and that's why this damage is caused by the overwatering. In this chapter you learn that respiration is a vital biological process. And all living organisms need to respire to get the energy needed for the survival. And from this chapter we learn that all living organisms need to respire to get energy needed for their survival.